Hello and welcome to our podcast on the sentence plus intro material. Before we go ahead and get going here, let's go ahead and remember what a complete sentence is before we even start talking about a sentence plus intro material. And so the first thing to remember is that the complete sentence must have 4 parts to it. Each sentence must have a subject, and this is what the sentence is about, or what is going to be described by this sentence, or what is going to do the action of a sentence. Our sentence also needs to have a predicate, and this is what the subject is or does, and therefore it must have a verb in it, and that can be an action verb, where the subject does something, runs, jumps, thinks, loves, sleeps, something like that, or it could be a linking verb that connects the predicate to the subject and further describes that subject. And these are usually forms of the verb to be. For example, Johnny is tall. Tall describes Johnny. They were fancy. Fancy describes how they were. Regardless, we need to have a predicate, and that is your verb. Number 3, we also must have a complete thought in our complete sentence. And so what we mean here is that we need to not leave the reader hanging. We can't have some sort of just group of words that are thrown together, but that don't form a complete thought. So if we have that complete thought, then we're good to go. For example, something like, although she was tired, even when you read that aloud, it's not a complete thought. Although she was tired, what? Although she was tired, comma, she did her work. Or although she was tired, comma, she stayed up later watching TV. Although she was tired is not a complete thought. It needs to be stuck to something. So our sentence must be a complete thought. And then the last one, number 4, we need to have punctuation. This means a capital letter to start our sentence. This also means some sort of end punctuation to wrap up the whole thing. So again, another reminder on this slide, the visual organizer that we're going to use for a complete sentence is just the word sentence in a box. And as we go through these podcasts in this series, you'll see how this comes into play. But the basic format of our writing is the sentence, and so we need to have an organizer for that, a visual, and so that's what we're using, the word sentence in a box. So when we say things like intro material, grammatically, we're talking about anything that starts before the actual sentence starts. So that could be grammatically an interjection, which is just a word that interrupts. A phrase, which is a group of words that act as a unit but can't stand on their own. It could also be a clause, which is a group of words that acts as a unit, but they do have a subject and verb of their own. If any of these items come before the actual meat of our sentence, we're going to go ahead and call them intro material. And so that's where we need to be talking about today. So this slide here shows the visual organizer of how we're going to set this up. On the right-hand side, we have our main body of our sentence, signified by our visual. And then on the left-hand side, this is the visual that we're using for this podcast. If you have intro material of any kind, that intro material needs to be followed by a comma and then attached to the rest of the sentence. If we have an interjection or a phrase or a clause and we want to stick that to the beginning of our sentence for whatever reason, it needs to be followed by a comma. That should pretty much set us up for a pretty solid sentence. Here's some examples on this slide. Number 1, well, comma, you might be right. Of course, comma, I can do that too. Although tall, comma, Johnny was still coordinated. So in all of these examples, you can see that to the right of the comma, you still have a complete sentence. You might be right. If you capitalize the you, that's a complete thought. It has the caps, it has a subject and a predicate, it can stand on its own. But if for some reason you want to go ahead and start that with the interjection of well, you're more than welcome to, as long as it goes well, comma. And the next one, of course, comma. Although tall, comma. Any of those things that are intro material, meaning they just introduce the sentence, they're not essential for the grammatical meaning of the sentence, we're going to go ahead and put those in and then follow them with a comma before we get into the main part of our sentence. On this last slide, go ahead and stop this and think about this and give yourself a little bit of practice. But ask yourself, how could we or what could we add as appropriate intro material to these already established complete sentences? So for example, number 1, Tommy won the sack race on the 4th of July. What could you add before that? So go ahead and pause the podcast now and write on your own paper some intro material examples for each of these sentences. What could you add, followed by a comma, that would then be attached to the main body of these complete sentences? So that's about it for this one. Kind of number 2 in our sentence series here. And the new thing that we're talking about is if you have a complete sentence and you want to go ahead and add intro material to it in some way, it should be intro material followed by a comma and then into the body of the complete sentence. We need to make sure that we separate intro from main body of sentence by that comma. That's kind of it. If you have any questions, go ahead and bring those into class. We'll get those answered for you. Thanks so much for listening, and we will see you soon.